So, hi everyone, and thanks for joining. Today we have kind of a special episode. It's actually two episodes in one. So, you all know that tomorrow we have the start of Prow, right? The biggest product conference in Western Romania. So, therefore, what we try to do here is also to bring some of the great speakers that will join us the next 2 days in the workshops and on stage, and learn a little bit about their life, their story, how they got where they are right now, and obviously a sneak peek into the talks for tomorrow. So we will start with Chisa today, and after that we will do a short break, and we will open up a new stream with Ethan. Unfortunately, he didn't land yet, so the moment he lands, he will join us here as well. So, hi, welcome. Thanks for joining, and I will let my colleague here start the questions.
Yeah, so passing it to the one in the fluorescent and t-shirt
Right.
kind of a thing. Thank you so much, Chisa, for joining us today, and thank you for being in Timișoara. And to get the ball rolling, we were discussing on how life takes us in a lot of places, and how life helps us learn what we like, helps us understand and somehow carve a path for each other. And your path is definitely an interesting one to chat about. And I'd kick it off with that. So if you scroll down on Chisa's LinkedIn, all the way down, you get to see that she's super skillful with horses. And with that in mind, how did that start, and how did you end up being a trainer for horses?
Yeah. So when I was little, I thought that I was going to join the circus and become a contortionist that happened to also work with horses. That was what I wanted to do. From there, I decided, okay, maybe I'll just be a veterinarian. And then I looked at the return on vet school, as well as kind of like, the not so happy like rates, and I was like, okay, well, maybe I should be a doctor. And then I was like, I don't know if I like people enough to be to be a doctor, because we have a lot of doctors in our family, and it really is a place where you have to give a lot of yourself, and I also knew I wanted to travel. But anyway, I loved animals. I loved animals. I've had everything. Talking about guinea pigs earlier, I raised guinea pigs. I had birds, and when I was 10, one of my mom's friends gave me 10 riding lessons for my birthday, and I kind of never looked back. And I was like this really intense kid who took like their passion really seriously. And so after 3 years of lessons, my trainer kind of took me under her wing and allowed me to be her apprentice. And from there, we realized that I think because I was just so direct in my approach and just so focused, I wasn't afraid to take on the horses that everyone else didn't want to ride. I wasn't afraid of getting knocked off or doing the dirty work, and that's kind of how I got to that, and I loved it. I learned so much about discipline, so much about creating space. Obviously, horse psychology is very different from human psychology, and it really gave me kind of like a quiet place when I was younger to really just feel like I could be myself, and do something that I loved. So that's how I kind of fell into it.
And that sounds like you learned a lot when.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and from that to tech.
To tech.
How was your journey? How did you
How
end
many
up?
steps in between?
I can't
were there?
even. I mean, a lot of steps to get to tech. In truth, I went to like a liberal arts college in the U.S. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I ended up almost double majoring, but basically majored in East Asian studies with a focus on China because it was important to me to learn more about my heritage. I have a psych minor because I was too lazy to take the last 3 courses that I needed to get the major, being honest. But I knew that I wanted to work in business. I knew that I enjoyed innovation and creativity. But at the time, what was being shown to me as far as business was just investment banking, finance, and I was like, oh. It's funny because that's what my partner does. He's probably. But then one of my friends actually got a job working with ThoughtWorks, who is their global IT consultancy, very well known for their agile software delivery principles and techniques. And I think I got lucky. Right place, someone was in the right, there at the right time, and I applied. They didn't care about the fact that my experience was different. They cared, could I do the job? That's what mattered. Like, did I have the aptitude? Did they have the attitude? Was I ready to do it? And that was kind of how I started in tech. And really, that's been kind of like my staple ever since. So yeah.
And what did you start with? What was your role over there?
My first role was a business analyst. So I've always been on the non-developer side, and I think that's something else a lot of people don't realize. Working in tech doesn't mean that you're just an engineer. There are so many other roles that are incredibly important that allow you to build like incredible products, incredible services, and you need all of those functions. You can keep it lean and keep it light. You can have a light team, but if you only have the builder, in my opinion, you're missing out on a balanced team that will help you build a balanced outcome. So I really enjoyed, first worked as a business analyst, but then I started to move further to the left and started to get more into product strategy, really thinking about aspects of delivery. And while at ThoughtWorks, I had the opportunity to explore a lot of different roles, a lot of different responsibilities. And I realized that product was the place that really spoke the most to me, because it sits in a place where you really get to connect and interact with, all of the various kind of hats, help to maintain that holistic view and really act as a bridge of communication. And that kind of parlays into part of the talk that I'm giving, which is, speaking about user journeys and the importance of creating a shared understanding so that everyone on your team is on the same page. So yeah, that's how I got to where I am today.
You can see a pattern because normally when you talk to engineers, right, and you talk to developers, they all started young. Like when I was 12, right? That's the story. Then I first discovered the computer, and then I started programming, and it's all these kind of small steps always
and it's linear.
Exactly, right? And then you get to a point and you do more complex things and you become a specialist or an architect or something like this. But what we noticed, right, when talking to people like in both sides, on both sides, is that most of the product people actually discover product later, right? Even you, like from your story, you discovered it after like majoring in a totally different.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that's the thing with engineering is it's a vocation. It's a vocation. You're learning a completely different language, and you have to be dedicated to it in a very different way. Whereas I think with some of the more behavioral sciences, as opposed to the hard sciences, the experiences that you bring equally as important, but just slightly, they're different. It's just a different approach to how you think about it. And with a behavioral science, anything that you have can be brought to the table and incorporated. And in truth, the more diversity of opinion that you can bring, the more comprehensive or well-rounded the conversations you're most likely to have when it comes to sitting at the table with your team. And then I think from there, it's a question of how well can you then work with your team to bring your stories together and tell that story so that you're leveraging the strengths of everyone around you. And I think that for me is what spoke, because I did try a comp sci class. It was very clear, as much as I love languages, that computers weren't, that aspect of computers wasn't for me. But I built my first computer when I was 15, 16. I used to rebuild and refurbish, laptops because I loved, I loved being able to fix things. I like fixing things. I like making things better. But I just didn't, actual coding didn't speak to me. Like as much as I, even tried to force it, I was like, this is not what I enjoy doing. But I have the deepest respect for the engineers, the engineers that I work with. It's just not for me.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about the team. You have to
Yes.
have you have to somehow have both sides in order to
Absolutely.
be able to deliver great products.
You need a balanced team, right? I mean, that's the whole idea of Prow, I believe, to show exactly this other side of tech.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the reasons why we started Prow. I mean, it's important for everybody within a product team to be able to have this kind of a holistic view, a bird's eye view, while keeping their specialization, while keeping their focus on what can they do better, but also be aware that they're going to be part of a team in which you're going to have multidisciplinarity, you're going to have people with various backgrounds, various languages in which they express themselves.
Yes.
And the challenge somehow is to put all of this together as we're all working to actually solving, hopefully, a real problem with a digital product or service. So yeah, that's super important, and that's why we're super happy to have you here.
Thank you.
What are you gonna talk about on Friday? What's the plan over there?
Yeah. So, my topic, I had to remember the title because I already. The title of mine is "Let's Make a Movie," and how user journey mapping can help you deliver more value. So, really, I think the essence of what I want to talk about is provide an example of how you can utilize one tool in a massive toolbox. So how you might use one tool to help to visually storytell, and in so doing, create a shared understanding. Because I think, and you really hit it, right? It's about how can you make sure that you're bringing all the voices to the table without creating an excessive amount of noise. And again, like as we all know, right, the space in the toolbox is vast. So this is just one thing, like one tool. There are tons of others. There may even be some that are better, but we're going to talk about one tool. And I hope that people are able to abstract and take away, how might I apply even just an aspect of this particular of a user journey map to what I'm doing today? How could this potentially affect? And even if I find a better tool, what are the underlying principles that ensure that we're really able to pull the essence of the positives and make sure that we're building, again, holistic and comprehensive products, services, and experiences? So that's, in a nutshell, what I'll be talking about. But it should be hopefully just a very kind of like short, concise, this is how you use it. These are some things to think about. And these are some lessons learned that I've had from using this particular tool.
Nice. Can't wait. You mentioned one thing in our talks before we started the podcast, right? And we need to go back.
Okay.
Because
What did I say?
apparently the animal team, right, went through your career in different shapes or forms. Mm-hmm. So you had a talk about how your dog helps you be better your job, right?
Yeah.
So what are the key points there? You mentioned there are some
Right.
key points that we need to.
Okay, well, just a little setup. So I have a dog. I got him at like age, I think 3.5. So I wasn't his first guardian. And my dog is reactive. So reactive means sometimes he acts before he thinks very quickly. And he's reactive most particularly to other dogs. I think he basically had a few too many bad experiences and now doesn't trust other dogs. He's also, predisposed, just given his breed type, he's predisposed not to trust other dogs. So anyway, I got him, did not know what I had signed up for. And it put me on a very long road where I had to learn a lot very quickly if I wanted us to have any semblance of like a good life. And, I think the interesting thing about adversity is when you have no choice but to do better, you either do better or you start crying. In my case, it was both. It was definitely both in my case. But basically, trial by fire, I learned to create and advocate for this dog. And I think as a people manager or as a member of your team, right? When you're working to create psychologically safe spaces, you are genuinely working to try and advocate for the voices that may be missed, the perspectives that may be missed, and make sure that they show up in your final outcomes. And that's what having my dog has done for me. So I wrote down 6 points. I can run through them. I do need my notes, but yeah, I mean, I think it's how do you advocate and create space, and even when something doesn't look the way that you think it should. People, I think, aren't used to thinking about animals as like something that you'd maybe need to advocate for. There are a lot of things we take for granted, and there is a lot of body language that we just simply ignore because we're verbal creatures. I think one that I constantly run into is the dog is wagging its tail. That means it's friendly. That's BS. Like, a dog wagging its tail means it's telling you something, but it could mean a multitude of things. So again, that's just one example. But anyway, the first one is start with engagement first and make sure your dog understands that all good things come from you. And basically, that means build a relationship. Build a relationship first. And with people, if you have tough feedback to give, it's going to be really hard for anybody to receive that if they don't trust you, they don't know who you are, and you haven't built some type of a relationship and have social capital in the bank. So the same thing goes with any animal. It's going to be a lot easier to have a conversation, a lot easier to modify behavior if they trust what you have to say. Number 2, you can't train if your dog is over threshold. Love, not fear, is what sticks. So oftentimes we put people and animals into situations where they're intimidated. So we expect them to change or do things for us through fear. And while, yes, you can achieve results that way, the quality of those results are not going to be as strong or even as like well cemented as if they come from a place of love. And again, tough love is totally fine. But if you're using pure intimidation and fear, especially in the work setting, it's not even a question of being liked. It's like that's a false sense of respect. So that would be number 2. Number 3, leverage the drives that already exist and use those to motivate your dog during training in order to achieve goals. So leverage the capabilities that people already have. Most dogs are highly food motivated. So use their food in sessions. Pair what they already enjoy and what they're already good at, that drive, with what it is that you're trying to achieve. So we do a lot of rewards-based training through treats, through affection, as well as through play. Like, you did it right, let's have a party. You did it right, okay, cool, we're gonna go do this fun thing. It creates this amazing association, and it leverages the strengths that already exist within my dog without having to create a false sense of confidence. And the same holds true with your teams. Leverage and think through and help to figure out what motivates the people that you're working with. Where are they a little less uncomfortable? How do you start to help build their confidence in the spaces where maybe they need a little bit more support? If you're able to do that, your team will thrive. Number 4, dwelling on the mistakes helps no one. Shake it off and move on. And when my dog goes through something stressful, and actually all dogs, a dog that shakes after something that's happened is actually, it's a physical manifestation of them relieving stress. They are quite literally shaking off the stress. So if you notice, and maybe now people will, after your dog goes through something that's a little bit tense or they're a little bit overexcited, oftentimes they will shake, and it's because they're relieving stress. And I don't even think that needs any more explanation. It's that, you did it wrong, fine, move on. It's okay to make mistakes. Don't rub your dog's nose in it. Just, take it, and next time manage the situation or set them up in a way where it will be a win as opposed to a failure. 5, if you're going to give a correction, be ready with an alternative behavior so that your dog knows what to do instead. It's pointless to correct for the sake of correcting. And I think this one it's really funny because how often have you been in a situation where someone on your team has given you feedback about something that's wrong, but they don't give you any indication as to what's right? And I don't understand how someone can grow that way. Like if someone has something to say or they correct me, I am more than happy to receive the correction. But if you can provide me no example or no sense of what good looks like, I don't understand how that moves any of us forward. So provide examples of what good looks like, and the same goes for my dog. If I want him to do something, I better make sure that he knows what the right thing looks like before I say, well, you did it wrong. The last one, and sorry, I know this was long-winded.
No, it's fine.
Proof the behavior before you move on. So in dog training, we call them the 3Ds: distance, duration, and distraction. And it basically works like an equation. Something will be easier if you're asking your dog to do it for less time, if you're asking them not to do it under distraction, and you're asking them to do it very close. Complexity increases the further away those things get, or the longer those things get. So start small. And this absolutely goes with growing people. If you want someone to grow, do it with them, ask for something smaller, and then you can build on that. The other thing is, we call it proofing a behavior, but just because a dog can do something inside where there's no distraction, basically where it's easy, it does not mean they're going to do the same thing outside where there are people running around and sirens going off. And the same thing holds true for humans, right? So if you are asking someone to do something to ensure that they thrive, you have to make sure that they have a chance to practice that skill or that capability in a setting, and understand how, maybe in the case of a person, it would be the 3Ds, but understand kind of the variables that come into a play that may affect their performance or may affect an outcome. So yeah, those are, there obviously there's a lot more, but those were the six that really.
So basically, we had a short talk right now. Right?
Yeah.
During the.
Sorry.
I mean, all the points, I believe, or most of the points actually are really relatable in the day-to-day life, right? Even the feedback one, I believe.
Absolutely.
That's a horrible thing, right?
I mean, I encountered that one a lot with the teams when I worked in tech. Sorry?
Can't.
Sorry. Yeah. So I ended up learning that because I ended up managing a few teams, and it was the value of it, the value of being able to say, "Hey, you're doing great things," coupled with the value of being able to help them steer in the right directions. That's super important, because otherwise, as professionals, we cannot develop.
Yep.
And we get blocked, and then the teams get blocked, and then it's definitely a key point in any company's progress.
Yeah, I think it's especially with, as we're building and producing, we oftentimes get asked for things, but leadership won't tell you what good is supposed to look like. And even in a place, in a space that's innovative, or a space that's net new, you still should be able to demonstrate, describe, or express what it is that you want. And as product practitioners, that's what we help people to do. But I think, even in the spirit of experimentation, run an experiment to say, okay, well, this part's good. This part maybe not so much. That part might be crap. But this part's good. This is an example of what we're looking for. Let's build on that. But having an incremental start place, or a building block that you can then jump from to the next, is exactly what I find to be really, really valuable. And that is exactly how you build, how you grow as an individual, how you grow as a team, and how you get closer to what it is that you're actually looking for, the outcome that you're actually looking for.
I mean, it's super interesting how all of these concepts and everything from the product world can be brought onto the human world, or
absolutely
to us ending up being better humans, better teams, better at life.
Because at the end of the day, you have different challenges, right? Being those technical challenges, being those like in a relationship or friendship or whatever, right? And we need to deal with them there will be always feedback, like even if you and your wife or the kids or you have a dog, right?
Yeah.
There is this kind of relationship is everywhere, right? Even if in tech. So I believe in tech and in some areas we focus more actually on that, right? Because there is a clear outcome, right? Do we have the revenue we wanted? Do we have the results we wanted? And we lose, right, this focus on on all other interactions that we have day to day. That's, I find it really funny, the dog
Yeah.
association, because the same problems, the same solutions, or the same patterns
The same.
rise, right?
Well, and to your point, right? What's missing is the why. It's the why. We spend when you get comfortable going through the motions, and I think this is what a lot of agile practitioners, what we forget, right? We go through the motions of, but did you do a retro? Did you do the stand up? Did we have a sprint demo? Those things don't matter. Like, why do you have those rituals? Why are they in place? Why did you get married? You know, like, that's what matters. Why did we do this thing? Why are we even building this? If your answer is just to make money, I don't care how. Do you, right? But I don't think that's why a lot of us do what we're doing. You know, that's not at least, maybe that's why we're doing what we're doing, but that's not what we enjoy about
Correct.
it, right? Yeah. And yeah, that's what I think we forget. Like, you asking someone to do something without the why, I think you personally start to lose out on aspects of humanity because you're no longer thinking for yourself. People are no longer thinking for themselves. Their opinions no longer matter because all that matters is the output.
Yeah. True.
Passing it to me, right?
You are in the flow. So,
That's true. That's true. Okay. So I'm gonna go back a little bit to technology, to Anchor, because we went on and into a kind of a life science area right now. I'm just gonna roll it back a little bit. So you started as a business analyst, but I mean, we have our focus somehow with the on the local community or the regional community is to see how we can help people better understand product, better understand that they're part of a digital product at the end of the day, or they're part of building a digital product or a digital service. And with that in mind, I'm trying to see both how did you go, so you entered this world through being a business analyst, and then you slowly carved into product somehow. But what would you think were your learnings in this journey, or how do you think other people could end up being these kind of people? What would be the traits for being a good product person, or understanding the product space better?
Ooh, okay. Well, okay. So I actually wrote an ebook, which you can find on my LinkedIn.
And in the
in the
link in the podcast, yeah, in the comments.
in the comments.
It's the title is WTF is a product thinking mindset. And so how do you achieve that mindset? There were kind of four things. I don't even know if I can recall them off the top of my head. But one was ruthless prioritization. So it's the ability to help people make decisions that are informed, and be honest and candid about it. Like, if something's not working, don't do it. And I think the other piece of it is you have to decide. Like, not even you could be the product person, you could be a member on the team, but how do you help people to be able to make decisions? I think that's one trait that, as a product manager or a product practitioner, that you want to work to develop. Another one was, I honestly can't remember, but another one was driving towards like metrics and success. So if I'm going to do something, I need to make sure there's evidence. So kind of going back to what we were just talking about, where is the why? I'm looking for results that are significant, which means a complete kind of shift in what we're used to, which is like, I always want to win. Winning to me doesn't mean a positive result every time. Winning to me is I have enough information, regardless of whether it's positive or negative, to make a decision. And that I think is kind of a huge and a hard shift for people to make, because we're constantly wanting to trend, I don't know, anyway, trend upwards, right? And true growth is not linear. And how do you help people to understand that? And how do you even internally start to understand that for yourself? Because, like, again, you have won if you have enough information to make a decision about what to do next. The only time that I have wasted my time is when I don't have enough information to make a decision.
To make an educated decision.
To make an educated decision that is evidence-based, whether it's qualitative or quantitative or both. Honestly, like, I don't even recall the other 2 points, so go read the book. But
It's gonna be in the comments.
yeah, but so in my mind, I think those would be 4 that stand out to me. And so it's like, if you're looking to hone 4 traits or 4 characteristics that make you a good product thinker, those in my mind would be my 4 picks. There are obviously more, but that's a great place to start.
You mentioned a lot. So the question will be weirdly asked, right?
Okay.
But for sure, everybody that listens and also on YouTube is you mentioned a lot of different titles, right? As a product practitioner, as an agile practitioner,
Yes.
agile. So what are you? Right?
What am I? Okay.
What are you, right? Because
what does my
you put
say?
you put Andrei likes to say, with different hats, right?
Right.
You put a lot of hats right now on during the talk.
Yes.
So, what do you consider yourself to be out of all this bucket of product roles?
So if I could pick any, actually, I am not like trying to humble brag, but I literally have created a Venn diagram of where I think I sit on my website. And
Link in the comments.
sorry, I am so sorry. But I'm a visual person. I like to write things down. And I think that I personally sit in between product strategy, agile delivery, and thought leadership / evangelism. So if you were to ask me what is my title, the last role that I sat in was Director of Product and Transformation. So I was in charge of product management and agile delivery. Mm-hmm. So how do we create environments that allow delivery managers and product managers to thrive? I'm an experienced product practitioner, which means I practice product. But I'm also an experienced agile practitioner, which means applying agile principles, methodologies, and techniques. And then I really think that thought leadership and evangelism and storytelling is almost a separate skill set. So how do you have those conversations with leaders? How do you work to create space, work to change governance and policy in the places that you work, to create environments where people can genuinely thrive, be successful, and deliver outcomes? I think product, like a product lead, or an agile lead. If you were going to ask me, what are you looking for? What does that? It would be, a product, either a product lead or a experienced product person or an experienced agile delivery person.
But is this a role where you grow into it, or does it actually exist in different companies? I mean, can you get hired, right? If I right now say, hey, this is awesome, right?
Yeah.
After watching you, I say, this is the way to go.
Yeah. Is
it something I need to grow into in different roles, or can I go and just apply for something like this?
You can. I think it's kind of like every company has a slightly different culture, right? And they'll call it a slightly different thing. Every company is in a slightly different stage of maturity when it comes to, what they do. And even within an organization, they're all providing different services, different products, different outcomes. The shape of what they then need might be named something different. So when we think about language, and I'm glad you touched on this, right? a product owner versus a product manager versus and then in terms of level, like a product lead or an analyst, they're similar, but depending on kind of like what school of thought you grew up in versus, XYZ, they may be called something slightly different. Where I'm from, product manager has become more ubiquitous, but it wasn't as common of a term used when I first started. You had analysts, you had business analysts, and product was at the time, I think, more of an emerging field. And I think sometimes that's where it gets hard, right? Because again, with behavioral science, like the behavioral science side, things aren't always the same. Whereas a doctor is always a doctor, an engineer is always an engineer, a plumber is always a plumber, right? But a product manager will have to adapt depending on the thing that you're building. So even your day to day will look slightly different if you're building a service versus if you're building a physical product versus a digital product. And within that space, the roles and the places where you need to go deeper on your, will look slightly different. And I think that's where it gets more complicated. But yeah, if you're looking for a role in product, starting off as a product manager, learning more about product management, right? But similar to a designer, a product designer, or even design is such a massive field because what are you designing? Are you architecting a building? Are you designing, are you designing like the interior of a thing? Are you a stylist? Are you working on fashion? Are you doing front-end development and design? Are you thinking about interactions versus experiences? And so even within the design space, right? It's such a massive field that you really have to kind of explore, try a bunch of different flavors, and then figure out, I like this part of it. This is where I want to specialize. And even engineering, I think to a certain extent, you have to do the same thing, right? You tend to specialize and start to think about, okay, I really like back end. I really like working specifically on platform. I really like working in the cloud. I'm really good at working, working in blockchain or working in aspects of Web3. So yeah, it's just when you're constantly innovating and creating, things change. So I personally almost feel like even when you're looking for a job, look at the job description and what skills within that job speak to you. What, in terms of what they're asking you to do, is the day-to-day something that you're interested in doing? And then from there, I'm sorry, make up whatever title you want, so long as you're able to back up, with actual capability, the thing that you're doing. Because in my opinion, and this may be wrong, the title doesn't really matter if you're able to deliver.
I'm not a fan of Elon Musk, but he said, right, at some Techno King or something like this, right? He had an interview, and the reporter asked, like, what's your title right now at SpaceX or something? And he said, like, the titles don't matter to me.
They don't really.
Call me, I don't know, not Techno King, but something like this, right? It's more about what you do day to day, and what your results are and why you are doing it. Then yes.
Yeah, and again, like if you're applying for a role, tell that company, yes, I'm a this. They're the only ones that are going to care what it's called, and in truth, I don't even know if I personally care about being a part of a culture where you care more about what I'm called than what I'm capable of doing. But it does matter to a lot of companies. And in truth, we're human beings. We work off of patterns. We create a taxonomy. It helps us to make sense of the world. So that's the part that's difficult, I think, for a lot of people. You have to take a step back, extrapolate, and then figure out where in the system can you fit in order to survive, right?
To be honest, I would challenge you on that.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
I would say that actually it matters more to people than it matters to the company.
Interesting.
Because there are a lot of people that work towards a role, work towards a title, more than the company needs someone having that title. everybody wants to become an architect. It's not necessarily that the company needs architects.
It's like jumping a step, it's your way of understanding that you jumped another step.
Yeah.
If you do more, right, in the job, and I believe we see it every day, right, with the teams that we have and like our community and everything. If you do more every day, right, even with higher pay, but your title stays the same, you feel you're stuck.
Yeah.
If you get another title, even if your day-to-day job is the same, you feel a sense of accomplishment, which is weird. So that's why I'm saying about what you said, the company, I would challenge that to say that the companies do not care so much about the titles. Most companies, and if you look at like huge corporations where you have like 20 titles, those are actually a mechanism, an organizational mechanism to keep the employee happy.
We're getting into some like anarchist talk, but I do not disagree. Like you're absolutely right, and I think that's where we're all fooled, right? Because like
agree, totally agree.
Yeah, that's where we're all fooled because and that's actually where, like, for me, I don't care about the title change. It's either going to be, and this also speaks to what motivates people. Is it I made a step? Is it, well, I'm making more money? Or is it, well, I've actually gained a new skill? Or is it some combination of those things? And for me, I care about gaining a new skill and sometimes making money, right? Because like life is expensive. The world is chaotic right now. But I don't really care what it's called as long as I know I'm growing. And I think, when we get stuck on like, again, these hierarchies, it helps basically to keep people in line. It helps to keep people in line. And again, I think if you know that you're playing that game, but when you don't know when it's happening to you, that's where I feel genuinely sad.
I think we're in a picture where a lot of people from the tech world don't actually know that they're playing.
For sure,
they're playing that game. I mean, they're somehow running towards achieving those roles, climbing those ladders, just to maybe check some boxes and maybe not to
have a title on LinkedIn.
But if you go to what she said, it should definitely be more about how you gained a new skill, about how you're more valuable at the end of the day, because that's something that nobody will be able to take away from you.
Exactly.
It's what sticks to you. It's how you bring more value to the table at the end of the day. And in a world where everything's changing super, super fast, and especially in tech, everything's changing every Tuesday. I mean, you have to stay on top of it somehow. If you don't, the value that you're going to add is going to shrink visibly. We should be definitely way much more focused on that new skill that we gained, that new thing that we learned to do better, to do it smarter, to work it better with the team. I mean, that's definitely something than just making sure that we go on top of those ladders to click it off.
But this is what we wish for, right? That's how a perfect world would look like. But the reality isn't like that. That's
The Simpsons gonna do an episode on that probably. They already did. They already did.
For sure in the last season. Yeah.
There's already one.
But it's you know the Danny Kruger effect, right? As less you know, as more you think that as stupider you are, the more you think you know, right? And there is a funny story about a thief that thought he will not be detected if he, you know the story or
no?
So it was a thief thought he won't be detected if he covered himself with like water and lemon or something, because he read somewhere that if you put water and lemon, then the ink becomes invisible. So if the ink becomes invisible, then for sure he will be invisible for the cameras. And obviously he got caught because the camera like recorded him. So then Danik something and Kruger something were two scientists looked into that phenomenon, right? And because he thought he knew things, he was one of the literate one, right? Because he read about certain things. Mm-hmm. So now he thought he knows everything. And they proved that as more you know, you realize how big the world is, so you think of yourself, a very small part of everything. As less you know, right, you are not realizing how big the ecosystem around you is, so you think you know 80% of it. So exactly, that's the an association to the whole, like, I want to increase, like, get a better title, it doesn't matter as much as what you are doing, as how is it called what you are doing, right? Because that's your sphere, and obviously the good ones don't even care, right? A lot do, like, hey, you seen on LinkedIn the pattern, and even in our community, everyone that is really someone, right? They have, like, I don't know, a code evangelist, doing awesome stuff with existing tools, or as a headline, right? Weird stuff without saying title. And you see the more, right, the ones that are in this kind of bubble, like Super Saiyajin senior developer principal JavaScript version 10, right? You see that even if you look at their profiles. So it's funny how these principles are reflected in real life. Like, you just do a LinkedIn search or a Google search, and you see that human behavior, like, playing out in front of your eyes.
Yeah, well, and that comes directly back to outcomes versus outputs, right? Output it's a this. But if you're driving towards outcomes, you have to actually stop and look at the thing. You have to take the time to understand it. And we like things fast, right? We like things fast. We like things now. A lot of people don't even care about taking the time to get to know an individual. But that's the thing. Once you know what someone can do, you've seen it, you've experienced it, you know that the experience you're going to get from that person is better. And you're right. The majority of the friends that I have that I'm like, I would walk to this person, through fire with this person. They're putting things up like, I code. But that's the thing, because those of us that are around who have taken the time to experience that person, we know what it is that they're going to be capable of doing. And I think that also kind of speaks to the maturity of a system, or even the type of system that you're working in. If an organization is truly outputs driven, they're going to be using that model versus like a truly outcome driven organization. They're going to be thinking about and evaluating people in a different way, and hopefully, the ecosystem of their organization will do the same, right? So I think we're not on Conway's law, right? So hopefully the organization looks the same way as the thing that they're going to build.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sure.
Completely agree.
One last one, right?
Yeah, one last one, because this is another topic. You mentioned that in your journey of finding the right role, your career, everything, one key factor was I wanted to travel.
Yes.
That's what you mentioned,
yes.
right?
Okay.
So
yeah.
Now you are from America, then you moved to London, right?
I did, yeah.
Now you're in Budapest.
Now I'm in Budapest.
Right?
Yeah.
So how does it play out? Like, what's the journey? How can you, what's the reasoning of moving? Is it opportunity? Is it experiencing different cultures? Is it something on a personal level? Because we have a lot of these kind of digital nomads, right? In Romania, at least, a lot of people want to, like, oh my God, I want to work in IT so I can travel the world. But is it something personal like this, or is it something professional where you say moving and working for these kind of companies, for these people, having talks or being in a community that's different with a different mindset helps me grow professional?
Yeah, in truth, I personally think it's personal first and foremost. So it's personal. I just knew that I wanted to see the world. I wanted to make sure that I had a profession that would allow me to do that. And I happened to kind of, I wouldn't say that I fell into tech, but I happened to find myself in a tech position. There are tons of other jobs where you can travel and still, and still have a perfectly like great. But yeah, for me, I ended up working in tech. I found that I really enjoyed, especially the product aspect of it. I like making things run better. I like making things work better. So I guess a lot of the mentality in terms of product, as well as kind of like agile and lean, really spoke to me because I just like making things more efficient. But yeah, for me, it is actually a personal goal to the point where, and it oftentimes doesn't make sense to potentially make a switch. Like technically, London is a very vibrant product market here in, Central Eastern Europe. It's emerging. I left my last role earlier in the year, so I've now, and I kind of set it down because this move was a bit of a bigger one. There was just a lot going on with life, so I'm now actually just this month starting to look for something, and there are absolutely going to be challenges. For instance, I do not yet speak Hungarian well enough to be
well
able
enough. You speak Hungarian?
no,
It
but-
fits it.
yeah,
So you're looking right now for a job?
I am.
You
I am.
moved and then you're... Okay.
I mean, again, like it doesn't have to be intelligent. It has to be what you.
What makes sense for you? Huh?
has
It's
to
what
start
makes sense
with
for
why,
me.
right?
It makes sense for me, and in truth, like the priority for this move wasn't, well, I'm going to move for my career. I'm going to move for my life. And my life brought me to Hungary, and that's where I am, and that's what's going to happen. And I think, like, again, it's what is your ambition? What's important to you? I want to do good work. I do have ambitions like for career, but career for me is not everything. It's not everything. And I think that there are so many other opportunities. And in truth, like, I'm also not afraid to push into discomfort, which I think is, at least I found that to be very important. And a lot of people struggle with discomfort. They struggle with being uncomfortable. And the truth is, discomfort is what allows you to grow. It's learning how to handle adversity and be more resilient, but take it at the pace that makes sense for you. I just happen to maybe I'm slightly masochistic. Like, I don't really know what to say, but my pace of change is very different. I don't have issues pushing into that tough feedback. I don't have issues, rolling with the punches and then moving on. So yeah, TLDR, for me, it was, in this case, it was personal, but I have made other career moves that deal with travel for actual, profession. But I think for me, in terms of what's important to me, I wouldn't see true growth for me as staying in one place. Like living in America for my entire life would have been a massive failure, especially given my heritage, given my background, and given the fact that I am under no illusion that the world is a big place. I think I was like one of those kids that like got bullied all the time for being different. So I understand the value and the importance of creating space for others and really thinking about the fact that there are so many ways in which something can be done. I do not know everything. I am never going to know everything, and I want to know more. And I think travel and experiencing different cultures, and sometimes actually usually throwing myself in the deep end does that for me. So.
And with that, we're definitely going to wrap it up. But for the ones who joined us and liked what we discussed today, you can still catch up with Chi at Prow. She's going to be in town for the next day. So if you don't already have a ticket to Prow, come to Prow. If you already have a ticket to Prow, make sure that you reach out to her before she's on stage, after she's on stage, in between she's on. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun.
Yeah. See you latest Friday.
Yes. Thank you.